Jeez, okay, I'm back. All right, so let's get back to this whole thing about producer guitarists and why I love them so much. And I'll be honest, I have zero idea why I like this whole the music studio production, recording, mixing side of things. I don't know. Um, I mean, you know, when you grew up listening with albums, you would like look at them all, and then you would see. Let me fix the light here, guys. So anyway, you know, when you grew up looking at albums, you would look at all the information in the back, studios, and you know, I was like, what is this stuff? You know, when you're 6 years old, 7 years old, you don't know what the hell that means. Produced by, engineered by. Like, what are these people doing? What does that mean? What are they engineering? What is engineering? Like, you know, at 6 years old, you barely know what the hell the word engineering means. So, but you know, over the, I don't know where I started getting into the record. I guess it was just, I think I would, all the guitarists that I would read these articles, they would always talk about, all the guitar magazine articles were always talking about what were they doing in the studio, how did they do something in the studio. And I guess I started like being fascinated by this whole thing of being in the studio and recording something yourself, or I don't know what I don't know. Then it wasn't like, and it wasn't like they had tons of pictures of like studios, you know, and stuff. Like, I didn't know guitar recording magazines existed and music production magazines. I didn't know any of that stuff. I was just like a barely even a teenager learning how to play the guitar and reading all these things. But I don't know, somewhere, I guess when I would start maybe, you know, going to Guitar Center, going to guitar stores, you see in the recording department, they have all this stuff there. And after a while, at some point, like, you start to see all that stuff, and then you want to like use, I don't know, maybe because I've talked to many I've seen articles of many, they don't care at all what the guys are doing in the studio, the console, what's the EQ, the preamps, compressors, blah blah blah, whatever they're using, they don't care at all. Whereas, like, I guess because I was always listening to Jimi Hendrix, and he was talking about, like, you know, he was like a mad scientist in a laboratory, and this was really kind of very mysterious and fun. Like, what is he doing in there? What did they do? And the way he would describe stuff in the studio, like, you know, we're trying to make this sound like this, we're trying to do this, we're trying to do that, and I think I was really, really into that. I just, and then of course Jimmy Page, same thing. All his articles are always talking about how he was like directing everything in the studio. He was the producer. He was doing this and that and this and that. And I'm like, okay. And it just seemed very interesting to me. Like, okay. And I guess I wanted, because I mean, everything they were saying was like all theoretical information. I like had no idea what that really meant, right? Like in a practical application way, because I'd never really done it before, right? So I think I think like I don't know. To be honest, I don't know what happened. One day, I just happened to get a Tascam 4-track recorder, and I was like completely hooked on this. Or I think I saw some friends' bands or something, and they were recording themselves, and I think I know what happened. It's because I was in this band after like high school, and And then we had some friends who had some recording equipment there, like, yeah, we'll help you guys record stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, wow, they have recording stuff. I'm like, to me, this was like, alien stuff. Like, wow, you can, people have their own record. I'm like, I barely had a guitar, or barely had enough money for strings and picks. They had recording stuff, even though it was like, the standard Tascam 4-track tape recorder. But still, it just, and then one day, and then when I saw what was happening, I was just like, wow, this is like so much fun. And then you could like pan things. I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing the same stuff I heard like on when the levee breaks. Things are panning left and right. I'm like, oh my God, that's how they did it. So I got pretty into this whole thing early on. And, back then, you're sitting on a 4-track, you can't really do tons of overdubs of guitar. So it was basically meant as, drums, bass, guitar, vocals, type 4 things and 4 channels for very simple recordings for bands and rehearsal studios. But me and my friends would record rehearsals like this. And then we would try to record some things. Yeah, anyway, so I really got into this whole recording thing. This thing is, and then of course it just all opened up when I was able to do this on the computer, because like how many tracks you had was basically limited by how good and fast your computer was. So I'm gonna check something. I'll be back. Okay, guys, I'm back. Sorry, I had to check that you could hear me. Just testing, making sure this is the right stream. All right, we are. All right, so anyway, let's get back to this thing, the guitarist producer thing. Like I said, it was just like you were completely in control of your own vision and your own sound and your own everything. And you could pretty much, if after you practiced enough, you did it enough, you could start learning how to record, and like you just do it and do it and do it. And I guess I read about, they talked about so much about what they were doing in the studio. Like Jimmy Page would talk about it a lot. A lot of the guitar players, I'd read Steve Vai interviews, he was getting in great detail what he was doing in the studio. And so, and Steve Vai's another one of those guys who's a great guitarist / producer also that I really like, and because he was also one of those guys and he was also inspired me to be that, just have complete control of whatever you're doing. And I mean, it's just, the guys that I loved, and I was just emulating them. It's that simple. I just wanted to record. I'm like, wow, this sounds so fascinating. And the music was so fascinating and mysterious. And I would just imagine, especially when you hear the stories of Led Zeppelin 4 being done in that Headley Grange place. And you hear about them in this crazy massive house, and it's like haunted and all this other crazy stuff. and they're having lots of fun being there. So, and you know, I think I mentioned one of my videos one day when I was 13, I found this Gray album and it had no information on it. I'm like, this is weird. What is this? And I think probably because it had no information, it made me want to go see what's going on in there. So I definitely went and listened to that. And it made me discover Led Zeppelin. I didn't know who it was, and I'm like, wait, I've heard these guys before. So it's like maybe my dad had played this, but I didn't know what their name was or whatever, but then inside, then you saw the name, you see everything in there, and so my introduction to Led Zeppelin was Led Zeppelin 4 with all these symbols and everything. And of course, I'd hear them on the radio, all their other stuff. Slowly, then I bought Led Zeppelin 2 for myself because I wanted a Whole Lotta Love vinyl. But then I discovered this whole other stuff, and it was just, I don't know, it was like a time machine. It took me to 1969 when they were recording, or 1971 when they were recording Led Zeppelin 4, and like they captured the sound of where they were when they were recording in a way, and so you were transported to this place where they're recording, and so to me that was really amazing to just, so that's why I just love this whole thing of recording, and to me recording and like producing and all this stuff, and being totally in charge of how you have a sound. Like, okay, I want 2 left and right guitars, and I want the vocal in the middle, I want the drums here, I want this sound, sample, synth, blah 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 blah. All of that stuff, you know, I do get into it in my songwriting workshop, which of course you can find on my channel here. But those guys, to me, like the recording and producing aspect is just as important as your songwriting. Like you're making the song and the end product is going to sound a certain way, and I feel like you're a real artist is going to be responsible for that. Take responsibility for that as well. You know what I mean? You have to own it. You have to take responsibility for every part of everything you record, like all of it. Like, to me, I was just, you know, I grew up reading Led Zeppelin, we can control everything, the artwork, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that's how it should be. So I just grew up thinking that this is how it is, you know, artists can do whatever they want. And I didn't know all this crazy struggles they had, arguing with labels, A&R people, blah, 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 who cares? But I, you know, to me, like, I just grew up listening to these guys, and like that's the way it's done. Jimi Hendrix, dive bombs, feedback, all this. That's the way it's done. That's it. That's guitar playing. I didn't have anybody tell me how. I didn't see anything as like groundbreaking or whatever. It was just like, wow, this is amazing. And every time I would hear new things, wow, it's amazing. Wow, it's amazing. But I didn't really like think of it as like groundbreaking or innovative or whatever. To me, that's just the way it was. That's the way guitar playing was. That's the way Jimi Hendrix played, and that's how you're supposed to play guitar, like that good, and like Eric Clapton and all these other guitar players. Like that's how you're supposed to play. That you have to learn them, blah blah blah, and that's how you do it. So that's my thing on the producer guitarist thing, because I believe and I think this happens more with guitar players than other instrumentalists. Not very often. Of course, you have like, okay, piano, if you have somebody like Billy Joel, yes, he's like totally in control of everything, the sound, the band, what they sound like in the studio, what he likes in there. Of course, he's, you know, somebody like that, or Elton John, you know, they're all in control of a lot of this stuff, and they're like, I don't like this, I like that, I like this, and, you know. But it's always these guitar guys: Jimi Hendrix, Steve Vai, Jimmy Page, Joe Satriani. He's the same way. So many of these instrumental guys, they're the same way. They're like hyper mad scientists in this. Again, big, hugely influenced by Jimmy Page, Jimi Hendrix. Again, complete studio nerds. And then let's not now talk about Robert Smith of The Cure. He's also in my top 3 of favorite guitarists, and he's also a big time like in the music producer. Yes, they have producers, but he's still there as like the overall person with the overall vision. Yes, the producers probably have something of a vision, but when it comes to these guys have a vision. You know what I'm saying? And of course, this is what I'm constantly talking about in my songwriting workshop. You must have your vision. You must have some kind of a big picture in mind before you're doing stuff. But of course, a lot of times we're just jamming riffs. We're just doing like that's different. But when you're like trying to put some song together, you got to have some kind of a vision going first. Okay, you have to have something like what I'm talking about in my course. Okay. First, the most important thing is to have your song vision with your big picture. Number 2 is get a really good structure going. Number 3, focus on your storytelling. Think of everything as a story. And then 4, learn how to deal with overcoming creative blocks. Those are the worst killers of creativity. You got to know how to get through those things. So anyway, but the first thing is you must have a vision. And all these guitar players, they have a strong vision. Joe Satriani, Jimi Hendrix, I don't know how many guys you could talk about over and over. So many guys have a very strong vision, and you must have this to create your own music and not waste your time too much, just randomly riffing away all day long, left and right. Yeah, you need to do that. You need to jam, come up with stuff, and, do all that stuff and come up with ideas, and of course that's part of it, jamming out, riffing out, whatever kind of practice or jamming or whatever you're doing to come up with ideas, that's required. But I'm talking about when you are going to say, okay, I have some vision of some song. You hear some like faint sound or something in your mind, you're hearing something, and you are like, for me, what happens many times is I will literally have a whole song start playing in my mind, and it's like a one section of a song, and usually this section will end up being the verse or the chorus. And so I hear this first, and then it gives me an idea for the rough tone and feel of the song, and then you can go from there. Take this feeling and tone and write down what your intention is. What is this song about? What do you want to do? I have this thing called the 4-step song blueprint. You can I'll link it down here later so you can check it out. It's a little sheet to get you started with these 4 points, to kind of give you a push, right? Like, gives you a little framework. Like, you're stuck, you can always start with this thing to kickstart your little songwriting journey and keep going. So you must have some kind of intentions. You must have some kind of goal in mind. Every artist, they always have some kind of a goal or vision. There is randomness, but when it comes time to get in the studio, record, or create a song, put something together, there is a vision and a guidance thing happening, a guiding big picture, like I call it, the big picture. So definitely I would suggest to you, create some kind of a vision for your song, vision for yourself, okay? And then you can put it in like one sentence, like, I want this song to be this, blah, 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 this song is about this. It's some kind of story, right? It's some kind of a story, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. Every single song is some kind of story, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, period. So you decide what you want your song to be like. What's the goal of your song? And then take it from there. So anyway, I think that's it for now. I'll be back later. So anyway, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you guys later.